Okay, let's unpack this. Picture an invitation. It's for an art exhibition back in 1977, Bob Camblin's Incomplete Works.
Right.
And the image itself, it's like stepping into a dream.
Hmm.
You've got this watery landscape. The colors are kind of hazy ochre, sepia, muted greens under this pale blue sky.
Very atmospheric.
Totally. And there's this thick foliage on one side, almost dipping into like a still channel or path that just disappears into the distance.
Draws you in.
And then these really stark, almost skeletal poles are just there, standing out.
Hmm.
And as you look closer, you start to make out these faint hints of buildings sort of dissolving into the haze.
Almost ghostly.
Exactly. But the things that really grab you are these, well, curious figures.
Okay.
Like there's something that could be an old boot, but it's also maybe a vase with a stick poking out.
Interesting combination.
And then a creature that might be an armadillo just hanging out.
Yeah.
Or maybe a really patient turtle.
Hard to tell for sure.
Yeah, and then bam, out of nowhere, these really startling, cartoonish eyes just looking right at you from the shadows.
Whoa. Okay. That sounds a bit jarring.
It is. The whole thing feels so unfinished.
Yeah.
So quietly mysterious, doesn't it? Like you've found some kind of secret language.
Well, what's fascinating about that description, that visual from the Incomplete Works invitation, is how it immediately kind of signals Camblin's core approach, I think.
How so?
It just subverts our expectation of a polished, finished artwork
Right
from the get-go.
Right.
It hints at his deep interest in, the process of creation, not just the final product.
Yeah.
It's a real insight into his artistic thinking.
Exactly. And that's precisely what we're diving into today.
Okay.
So while this one exhibition is kind of our anchor point, we're looking at more than just that image. We have this invitation, which is almost a piece of art itself, really.
It sounds like it.
And alongside that, a collection of quotes from Camblin gathered over his career.
Okay. His own words.
Yeah. So our mission, if you like, is to use these pieces to really try and understand how his creative mind worked, to get a grasp of his philosophy, his intentions.
And putting that 1977 show in context is useful, too.
Definitely.
Camblin had recently come back from Venice. He'd secured a representation with Betty Moody at Moody Gallery, which was a pretty big deal in Houston.
Yeah, validation, like you said.
Exactly. And he was active in group shows leading up to this solo exhibition in November 77.
Okay.
But interestingly, he was sort of juggling things. He still needed to complete work for his subscribers, his patrons, back in Venice,
Okay.
while also creating this new body of work for Moody. So, a busy time.
So he's back in Houston, plugging back into the scene, and Complete Works feels like his reemergence statement, maybe?
Could be, yeah.
And the invitation itself, you mentioned this open Texas scrapbook displaying autobiographical postcards. That's such a telling detail, isn't it?
It really is.
You see these little snapshots of his world, like a postcard addressed to the holding firm, whatever that is.
Intriguing name.
A drawing of Mr. Peanut?
Yeah.
The planters guy?
Okay. A bit random.
Seems like it.
Huh.
A photo of a Texas longhorn and then this recurring name or initials. K-Sage or KS.
K-Sage. That's significant.
Tell me why.
Well, she was a prominent surrealist painter.
Right, surrealism. Makes sense with the dreamlike imagery.
Exactly. Her work often had that eerie architectural dream logic feel.
Mm.
So mentioning her, it gives us a crucial clue. Surrealism, with its focus on dreams, the irrational that clearly resonates with Camblin's way of mixing the familiar and the strange.
So these postcards, they're not just like, here's my life story.
No, definitely not. It's more like a coded glimpse into his personal history, his influences. He's inviting us to piece them together, not handing it to us on a plate.
And the exhibition itself, it featured these watercolor landscapes and drawings derived from that postcard series.
Mm-hmm.
He even had this great quote about the watercolors. He said they allowed him to lay in the ground and play my games.
Play my games, okay. Yeah, and that their existence would be enough homework if someone wants to check.
Homework. I like that.
It's like he's giving you the foundation, the landscape, but then openly saying, okay, now come play in my world of visual puzzles.
That quote is incredibly revealing, isn't it? The idea of games and homework points directly to his artistic intent.
Yeah.
He wasn't just trying to make pretty pictures. He was deliberately embedding visual games, hidden codes, personal references, and ciphers, as our sources mention.
Right. He expected you to work for it a bit.
Absolutely. He wanted viewers to engage, to actively try and decipher these hidden messages.
Okay, so that's the Incomplete Works exhibition, the sort of doorway into his unique way of seeing and creating.
Yeah,
But when you start looking at his broader artistic philosophy through his quotes, it adds, well, a whole other dimension.
for sure.
I mean, the title itself, Incomplete Works, it just echoes perfectly with this quote of his. Fortunately, some things remain forever, or another 10 years, perhaps.
Laughs slightly. Yeah, that's a great line.
Isn't it? There's this feeling that art isn't this fixed, permanent monument. It's maybe ephemeral, constantly evolving.
Exactly. That idea of incompleteness, it ties right into a recurring theme for him. The value of the process over the final polished product.
Right, the journey.
Yeah. Art for Camblin, it seems it wasn't about reaching some grand conclusion. It was about the exploration itself,
Yeah.
the act of creating. That quote also suggests a kind of humility, maybe, an acceptance that everything, even art, changes with time.
And he seems so focused on observation, on perception, how we see things.
Definitely.
He says, look into the atom, you get what you need. Look into magic, and you get what you need. Philosophy and art are in both.
Wow. Connecting the scientific and the mystical.
Yeah. And then this kicker, one must learn not to look, but to see.
Powerful.
It really pushes us, doesn't it? To go beyond just a surface glance and engage much more deeply. It kind of reframes how we should look for meaning. Maybe the same deep truths are in atoms and in magic.
Well, that connection he draws between the microscopic world of the atom
Yeah.
and these, seemingly intangible realms of magic and philosophy, it's really insightful.
It is.
It implies that you can find fundamental truths, understanding, in really unexpected places.
Yeah.
If we cultivate a way of seeing that goes beyond the obvious surface.
Right.
And his quote about the sixth sense being, without a doubt, senza dubio, it reinforces that idea of a more intuitive, certain kind of knowing, not just intellectual belief.
I also love his desire for the perfectly average view. He wants that average view to be able to enjoy miracles on both sides, science and magic.
Yeah, that's lovely.
It's like he's finding this incredible wonder in the middle ground, in the everyday, maybe, in the space where these supposed opposites meet.
That really highlights his appreciation for nuance, for complexity, doesn't it?
Totally.
He wasn't interested in simple black and white or easy answers. He was drawn to that fertile ground where different perspectives, different realities intersect, that smear between the whiteness and the blackness, as he put it somewhere else.
Yeah.
That seems to be where he found the most potential, the most meaning.
And then you have these quotes connecting nature and the self, like, find something in nature that completes you, and then surrender. Given those prominent watery landscapes and incomplete works, that really resonates.
Absolutely. The natural world seems to be a really profound source of connection, of understanding for Camblin.
Yeah.
And that act of surrender, it suggests letting go of your ego, your preconceived ideas, being willing to be absorbed by the environment, and finding some kind of inner wholeness through that connection. It's fascinating how that quote echoes those dissolving forms in his landscapes.
He also has this interesting take on the purpose of art. He says, art for art's sake has become art for life's sake, or art for my sake, or art for survival's sake.
Wow, that shifts things considerably.
It does. It suggests a much more personal, vital role for art, not just something pretty or intellectual, but something essential.
Yeah, that shift points towards maybe a dissatisfaction with purely formal or detached ways of making art.
Could be.
For Camblin, it seems like art was deeply tangled up with his own existence. A necessary tool for, navigating the world, understanding it, perhaps even a form of personal survival, like he said.
And this idea of stepping off the train of thought, that's another recurring one.
Right.
To find the power that is no power, to do the work that is not work, to laugh the true laugh, bending is not bowing.
That's such a vivid image, isn't it? Breaking free from just normal thinking.
It really is. It makes you pause and think about the boxes we put ourselves in mentally sometimes.
Yeah.
That quote perfectly captures a core idea you find in a lot of, well, spiritual and philosophical traditions, right?
It's about moving beyond just linear rational thought to tap into something deeper, a different level of understanding, creative potential. The paradox of power that is no power or work that is not work, it suggests a state of, effortless action, flow, truly authentic expression.
He clearly loves balance and paradox. He talks about balancing and being for and against.
Right, holding opposing ideas.
And draw, teach, search, reveal, always framed in paradox.
Yeah.
And these concepts he has, like resist and submit and figure four.
Figure four, like
Yeah.
the wrestling hold.
Yeah, which is this complex interlocking thing, right? It suggests he's interested in these dynamic systems where forces are both pushing and pulling, resisting and submitting, creating this tension.
That makes sense.
You can almost see that mirrored in the contrast within his landscapes, the stark poles against the soft haze, maybe.
This embrace of paradox, it seems fundamental to getting his complex worldview. He doesn't shy away from contradictions.
No.
Instead, he sees them as, well, inherent to reality, and maybe a vital source of creative energy.
And what about his view of the artist as a free agent, not bound by external commitments?
Yeah, that's interesting.
Especially when you think about that ecology of art idea we came across, which kind of suggests artists might be unknowingly part of a bigger system anyway.
Well, the free agent concept really emphasizes the artist's autonomy, their independence. Camblin seems to see the artist as someone who just is, resisting those external pressures to conform or, serve specific agendas.
Right.
But the ecology of art idea adds an interesting layer. It suggests that even when you're pursuing your own individual expression, you might still, unintentionally, play a role in the broader culture or society. It's another paradox, maybe.
Could be. He also had some pretty pointed criticisms of the art world itself.
Oh, yeah.
Talking about consumer art, how the emphasis shifted to shock value over contemplation, technique maybe taking a backseat to just the concept.
Okay, I can see that frustration.
His quote about the disposable art culture and his analogy of a critic, get this, a critic as a legless man who teaches running.
Ouch.
Yeah.
That's pretty biting.
It is, but you can kind of see his point, right? That frustration when theory feels totally detached from the actual doing of the art.
Yeah, these critiques reveal a real concern he had with what he saw as maybe superficiality or fleeting trends in the art world.
Seems like it.
He seems to lament this potential loss of focus on craftsmanship, on thoughtful engagement, replaced by a constant demand for novelty, for immediate recognition. And yeah, that critic analogy is sharp, questioning the authority of those who maybe lack the direct hands-on experience.
He also really stresses the importance of the nonverbal.
Drawing.
Exactly. Seeing drawing as this primary form of communication that goes beyond what words can capture.
That fits perfectly with the enigmatic visual nature of his own work, doesn't it? Especially those intriguing images in incomplete works.
Yeah.
For Camblin, drawing isn't just about, sketching something realistically. It's a direct line to ideas, emotions that maybe words just can't fully express.
And I think one of the most, encouraging parts of his philosophy is how he embraces failure and the process itself.
That's crucial for any creative person.
Right. One must try to fail in order to succeed. Success will be another failure. Process and awareness of it cannot be failure.
That's a really powerful way to frame it.
It really is.
Think about, learning a new instrument. The joy isn't only in playing the perfect song eventually. It's in the daily practice, the fumbling, the experiments, the gradual understanding you build up.
Yeah, the little breakthroughs along the way.
Exactly. And Camblin seems to have applied that same value to making art.
That perspective really frees the artist, doesn't it? Frees them from the fear of making mistakes.
Right.
It emphasizes the inherent value of just exploring, experimenting.
Yeah.
Failure becomes just an essential step in learning. And the very act of creation, the process and awareness of it, like he says, that holds its own intrinsic worth. It can't be failure.
He also touches on self-awareness, inner knowledge.
Deeper stuff. Yeah. The difference between just believing something and truly knowing it. And this idea of innate wisdom, he references that Zen saying about how we're always the Buddha, but we just keep forgetting it.
Suggests we already have the answers inside us.
Kind of feels like it. These quotes delve into more philosophical territory, suggesting a belief in some underlying truth or potential within each of us. That distinction between belief and knowing, it implies a direct experiential understanding, something you feel, not just think.
Right. Goes beyond just intellectual agreement.
And finally, this fascinating hologram analogy.
Hologram. Okay, explain that one.
The idea that individual perspectives are like pieces of a hologram.
Okay. Where each piece contains the whole.
Exactly, but maybe less clearly. His hologram idea suggests that our individual viewpoints, even if they seem incomplete, all contribute to a larger, richer understanding if we cooperate, instead of just arguing about whose piece is bigger or more correct.
That's a really powerful metaphor, actually, for interconnectedness and recognizing the limits at any single viewpoint. It encourages a collaborative approach to understanding, where all these diverse perspectives add up to a more complete, more nuanced picture of reality. Less my bit versus your bit.
So when you bring it all together, the invitation, the quotes, you can really see how that incomplete works exhibition, with its dreamlike feel, its unfinished quality, those weird figures, it truly embodies so many of his philosophical ideas.
Yeah, it clicks together.
It's all about inviting your interpretation, valuing the act of looking and questioning over finding neat answers, blending the familiar and the surreal, actively participating in making meaning. It's like that single invitation is a key to his whole artistic world.
Precisely. The exhibition functions as a microcosm of his broader philosophy. The incompleteness isn't a flaw, it's an open door.
Right.
The unusual figures, the hazy landscapes, they aren't meant to be definitively explained. They're there to spark your curiosity, to get you involved personally.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive into Bob Camblin's incomplete works and his, well, really insightful quotes, it definitely leaves you with something to chew on. Given Camblin's embrace of incompleteness and his urging to step off the train of thought, maybe think about this. What unfinished areas in your own life or your own thinking might actually hold the most surprising insights if you just allowed yourself to explore them without that pressure for immediate completion, you know?
That's a great question. Letting go of the need for everything to be tied up neatly.
Exactly. It really makes you think about the value of just open-ended exploration and the power of your own individual interpretation.